Comic book and movie characters tend to have a very singular look, but not all these characters have to be pretty. Believe it or not, once in a while there's a character that isn't so perfect. They're flawed like the rest of us, and some of them grotesquely so. And some of them look way better with their mask on. Let's dive in to see who they are. Before we get started, be sure to click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest videos.
Get your hands off me!
What is that?
Spawn. Al Simmons was a CIA operative that specialized in black ops before he was murdered by Chapel in a huge fire. As if being taken out wasn't bad enough, he was actually sent to hell for all of his wrongdoings. In hell, he meets a demon named Malbogia, who makes a deal with him. Al will be able to see his wife once again in exchange for his soul. Well, that sounds like a good deal, right? He obviously takes this deal because love makes us do crazy things. But since he's already in hell, why not, right? Once again on Earth, Al found that he was turned into a demon hell spawn with green eyes and rotting flesh, much like the undead. He got a little bit more than he bargained for. Now that he no longer has his human form, he looks much better with his black and white mask on, which covers his disfigured face entirely. Yep, just like Deadpool. The mask has also become iconic as they both look way cooler with it on. And also, to be frank, his unmasked face is really harsh looking, and it's better when he remains hidden under that cool mask. Just keep the mask on, always, please.
Yeah, she was real nice. She said hiring ex-cons are part of the company program, give people a second chance. God, please let go, I'm telling the truth.
Rorschach. When you first pick up Watchmen, Rorschach immediately stands out, not only for his extreme and unhinged personality, but also for his awesome masks. At first, he appears to be the most extreme, violent vigilante in the story, with a black and white view of justice. Almost as black and white as his awesome ever-changing masks, that is. But it's only until much later that you find out that the other characters are much more cold and calculating than him. Go figure, right? When he removes his mask for the first time, readers were totally shocked by what they saw. The man underneath, Walter Kovacs, is not at all what they expected. Even his own mother called him ugly. He's got a face not even a mother could love, it looks like. She's clearly very abusive of him, but the fact that she insults his looks doesn't help his case. Dr. Long, who psychologically evaluates Kovacs after he's captured, also comments on how ugly and disturbing his patient looks. His eyes are unblinking and completely devoid of emotion. He looks as though he's completely detached from everything, which makes it really unnerving and uncomfortable to look at him.
The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Darth Vader. After Anakin Skywalker let Palpatine murder Mace Windu, solidifying his position on the dark side, he pledges himself to Palpatine. And here we thought Anakin was the chosen one. Shame on us. This is of course after Palpatine promised he could help save Padme from certain death. Oh, Anakin, so young and so naive. Anakin then becomes his Sith apprentice, Darth Vader. After massacring everyone at the Jedi Temple, even the younglings, he goes to the volcanic planet Mustafar. This is where a long battle with Obi-Wan ensues. Obi-Wan defeats him because he has the higher ground, but Anakin didn't listen, and so Obi-Wan ends up cutting off his legs and an arm in the process. Ouchies. Should have listened, Anakin. You can see that he is quite literally at higher ground than you are. But alas, stubborn youth. The mutilated Darth Vader is then irreparably burned and scarred by the lava before Palpatine rescues him and gives him the iconic Vader suit. His scarred and ghost white face is only revealed at the end of the Return of the Jedi, and we think Luke would have probably been happier had he not seen his father's messed up face. What do you think?
You think all this can last? There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne.
Catwoman. Alright, so let's be clear what we mean in this section. We are all in agreement that Catwoman is actually gorgeous without her mask on, right? So naturally, that doesn't mean she's less attractive with it on. There's probably no way Catwoman could ever look anything less than stunning. Wouldn't you agree? Every iteration of Catwoman, even the cartoon versions, have been portrayed by a gorgeous lady. In fact, we would argue that she's even better looking with the mask on. The costume is all part of her allure, and you can't have the costume without the mask, so we'll take it. Just think about it. Has there ever been a Catwoman in the history of comic books, television, film, or mixed media that didn't look amazing in her costume? The mask adds an extra layer of allure and mystery to her that actually makes her much more intriguing. The shiny black, figure-hugging latex, the heels, the mask, the whip, it's all very alluring, and it actually all works better when put together. Let's put it this way, did your childhood fantasy involve Catwoman or Selena Kyle? We rest our case.
I thought we could mark this November the 5th, a day that is sadly no longer remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat.
V. One of the things that bugged us is the true identity of V is never revealed in V for Vendetta by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. We never get to see his face, which is always hidden behind a Guy Fawkes mask. This remains the case throughout the story because V is inseparable from the symbol he represents, which makes sense and is very poetic, so we understand the necessity of keeping his face out of the limelight. A number of the prisoners at a resettlement camp at Lark Hill were subject to experiments and torture. They all died as a result of the horrible conditions of the experiment, except for, of course, the man in Room 5 or Room V who gained super strength. V made his own napalm and mustard gas and exploded his way out of his cell. In the film, it's shown that V was severely burned in the explosion, and within the context of the comic book, it would make perfect sense that he is disfigured during his escape from the camp. So we imagine that he looks something akin to Darth Vader or Deadpool under the mask, perhaps. Either way, the mask has become as iconic as his message.
Stop it!
Cyclops. We all know that Scott Summers has a devilishly handsome and chiseled jaw, but what about those peepers? Well, you know what they say, the eyes are the window to the soul? If that's the case, we got a huge problem with Scott, because his window is a bit dangerous. How? Oh, you know, he just shoots an optic blast that would probably kill you. No big deal. Eyes are a huge part of what makes you physically attractive to someone. They are a large part of our identity and something that is unique to everyone. So it would make sense that our eyes reveal a lot about us, considering they are pretty expressive. They are the biggest conduit of emotion, and eye contact is what connects you to another person. Unfortunately for Cyclops, no one wants to see his eyes because that means trouble. Or rather, we would love to see his eyes, but it just so happens that it could mean there's a high probability that it's the end of someone's life. He's hotter with his mask on because it means you won't get hurt when he looks at you. Keep your mask on, Scott, for everyone's sake.
No man takes a beating like that without a mark to show for it. Come on, buddy, this isn't gonna be worth it. I know what you are.
You lost your money, you keep this up, you lose something else.
Come on, buddy.
Wolverine. When you think of Wolverine, chances are you probably think of Hugh Jackman, right? People are so used to that handsome devil that is Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine for the past 17 years that they often forgot that Wolverine of the comics is a bit different. He isn't tall and good looking in the comics. Instead, he's a hairy, ugly ball of muscle with a constant scowl on his face. His hair and beard are extremely long and unkempt, which makes him look like an animal. And he probably smells like one too. Which makes sense since he's supposed to be ferocious. Those mutton chops would look amazing if they were groomed up a bit. Along with the rest of him, Hugh Jackman pulls off a perfect amount of slightly unkempt scruff, looking on the rugged side as opposed to feral. Although he doesn't wear his mask all the time in the comics, it would probably be a good idea that he does. He can't get away with going about mask-free like Jackman. Maybe his odds with Jean Grey would have liked him a bit better with his mask on. It does give him a more edgy look, don't you think?
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
SpiderMan. It's no secret that Peter Parker is a huge geek. It's actually a huge part of what makes him so relatable and so charming. He's awkward in school, he gets bullied, and he can't talk to girls. A huge reason as to why we love him. His charm comes from the fact that he's not like other superheroes. He's just a high school kid with regular high school problems, like we all are, or were. Well, a kid who just so happens to have superpowers. But again, it's great watching him awkwardly grow up and into his powers. Look, we're not saying he's a bad-looking guy, he's actually pretty darn adorable. He pulls off that awkward nerd thing really well, but the mask definitely gave him a lot more confidence, which carried into his personality and in itself is attractive. Confidence is key. You have to have a lot of confidence to fight supervillains, risking death and saving people from burning buildings. This is a confidence that is entirely lacking from his alter ego. Not to say he didn't have any confidence as Pete, but the mask definitely helped enhance that tenfold. The mask definitely gives him an edge, don't you think?
Maximum effort.
Deadpool. The Merc with a Mouth is known for his fast-talking, twisted humor, and of course often breaking the fourth wall. He's pretty self-aware, which is part of his many charms. If you were to close your eyes right now and someone mentioned Deadpool, what would you picture? Chances are his iconic costume and mask, right? Along with some sort of debauchery he's done. He dons a bright red and black suit, but underneath the costume he is truly grotesque. So what the heck happened to him anyway? For those of you who may not know, he wasn't always gifted with superpowers. Before getting his powers, he was actually diagnosed with cancer. He was approached to join the Weapon X program, where he was promised that it would cure his cancer and he would obtain superpowers in the process. Doesn't sound like that bad of a deal, right? He was injected with a serum, giving him healing factor like Wolverine. Again, not half bad, but of course there's always a catch. The serum actually failed to cure his cancer. Instead, the healing factor heals him at the same rate as the cancer eats away at his body. That's why his face looks like, in his own words, a testicle with teeth.
Let's do this. Dummy. Hi, dummy. How did you get that cap on your head? You earned it.
Iron Man. Iron Man has a special place in our hearts in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He was the first superhero to get a solo feature under Marvel Studios, and it was a major hit. Tony Stark is arrogant and a bit stubborn at times, but that's not the root of our issues. Speaking purely aesthetically, our gripe with Iron Man particularly has to do with the stylistic choices they made in the films, which sometimes has found its way into the comics as well. To be more specific, we're referring to his beard or goatee. What is going on there? We get that he has a lot of money to waste, but what's with that facial hair? Why are there ridiculous points in it and sharp angles? It just looks plain silly at times. We think a less groomed and not so angular version of this facial hair would look better. Maybe a little bit less comical, or that might just be the look he's going for. As for the comics, we never got the impression from most artistic interpretations of him that he was particularly a good-looking guy. He looks average and has a ton of cash. However, the suit is another story, which always looks slick and cool.
Look, you were right. You were right about me.
Well, there you have it, folks. Those were some of our favorite characters whose masks make them look way cooler than their bare faces. Who were your favorites? Are there any we may have missed who you think look better with masks on? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. While you're here, check out more awesome vids like this one in our playlist. As always, thanks for watching.